Ebony's hand trembled as she felt the man's fingers dig into her arm, his grip bruising and deliberate. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. She had endured disrespect before, came with the territory of being a black waitress in an upscale establishment, but this was different. This man wanted to hurt her, wanted to humiliate her publicly for the simple crime of asking him to lower his voice. "Let me go," she whispered, her voice barely steady. He laughed, a cruel sound that made her skin crawl. "Or what? You'll call your manager. Go ahead. I know the owner." The words were meant to terrify her into submission, and they might have worked if not for what happened next. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Every conversation died instantly. Ebony felt the man's grip loosen slightly, felt him turn toward someone behind them. She heard a single word spoken in a voice that carried absolute authority despite its quietness. "Release." The man's hand fell away from her arm as if burned. When Ebony finally looked up, she saw him, tall, devastatingly handsome, wearing a black suit that probably cost more than her yearly rent. But it was his eyes that stopped her heart, dark, intense, and currently fixed on the man who had grabbed her with an expression that promised violence. Diego Marone had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same. If you want to discover how this story began and what happened after this moment, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Every view helps bring more stories like this one. Now, let's go back to the beginning and see how Ebony's life intersected with the most dangerous man in the city. Ebony Crawford had perfected the art of being invisible. In her 3 years working at Stellatos, one of Manhattan's most exclusive Italian restaurants, she had learned that the best waitresses were the ones who appeared exactly when needed and vanished the moment their service was complete. She moved through the dining room with practiced grace, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, her uniform pressed despite the chaos of a Saturday night rush. Table 12 needed water. Table 7 was ready for dessert. Table 15, the loud group of businessmen, was getting progressively drunker and more obnoxious. Ebony Marco, the manager, snapped his fingers at her. "VIP section. They need someone who won't screw up." She grabbed a tray of wine glasses and headed toward the private area, separated from the main dining room by frosted glass panels. The conversations here were quieter, more calculated. Everything about this section screamed power and money. Her section tonight included a table of older men in expensive suits speaking in rapid Italian. She caught fragments, something about shipping routes and customs officials. "Excuse me, miss." One of them gestured at her impatiently. "We've been waiting for our appetizers for 20 minutes. Ebony checked her notepad. "Sir, I just took your order 7 minutes ago." "The kitchen, are you calling me a liar?" His voice rose, drawing attention from nearby tables. She felt her stomach tighten. "Not at all, sir. I'll check with the kitchen immediately." As she turned to leave, she felt it, that prickling sensation of being watched. She glanced toward the corner booth, perpetually reserved for someone named Marone in the reservation system. She'd never actually seen anyone sitting there until tonight. He sat alone, a figure carved from shadows and expensive fabric. Even from this distance, she could see the sharp angles of his face, the perfect cut of his jet black suit, the way everyone in the room seemed acutely aware of his presence without looking directly at him. But she would swear on her life that for just a moment his eyes had lifted to hers. Ebony shook off the sensation and headed to the kitchen. She had exactly 45 minutes left in her shift. Then she needed to catch the bus to her second job, the overnight cleaning shift at an office building in Midtown. When she returned with the appetizers, plated perfectly, exactly on schedule, the situation had deteriorated. The man who had complained was now standing, his voice raised, pointing at another waitress, who looked close to tears. "This is unacceptable. Do you know who I am?" "Sir, please lower your voice," Ebony interjected, setting down the appetizers. "You're disturbing the other guests." His face flushed red. "Don't you dare tell me what to do. Who the hell are you?" "I'm the waitress who took your order 7 minutes ago, and your appetizers are here exactly when they should be." For a moment, she thought he might back down. Then his expression twisted into something ugly. The words that followed made her blood run cold. Slurs she'd heard before, but never in a place like this. Never said with such casual venom. Ebony felt her face burn with humiliation, but she kept her voice steady. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. He laughed cruel and sharp. You're going to ask me to leave? He stepped closer, invading her space. I don't think so, sweetheart. His hand shot out and grabbed her arm, fingers digging into her flesh with deliberate cruelty. The pain was immediate and shocking. Let me go, she managed, her voice cracking. Or what? He leaned in, his breath reeking of expensive wine. You'll call your manager. Go ahead. I know the owner. Then the temperature in the room dropped. She felt it before she saw anything. A shift in the air, a sudden tension that made every hair on her body stand on end. If you're enjoying this story and want to see what happens next, please subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support means everything to us as we continue bringing these stories to life. The man's grip loosened slightly. His face went pale. Release. One word. Quiet. Almost conversational, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. The man's hand fell away from her arm instantly. Ebony stumbled back, cradling her bruised arm, and finally looked up. Diego Marone stood 3 feet away. Up close, he was even more imposing. Easily 6 feet 3 inches, broad shoulders filling out his suit perfectly, dark hair styled with casual elegance. But it was his face that made her breath catch. Devastatingly handsome, yes, but there was something dangerous in those dark eyes, something that suggested violence was always just beneath the surface. He wasn't looking at her. His entire focus was on the man who had grabbed her. Mr. Marone, the man stammered, all his earlier bravado evaporating. I didn't know I wasn't. You grabbed her. Each word was precisely articulated, almost gentle. Somehow that made it more terrifying. Explain. She was disrespectful. She asked you to lower your voice. Marone took 1 step closer. Just one. The man actually whimpered. And your response was to put your hands on her. In my restaurant. Your restaurant? Ebony's mind reeled. I'll leave. The man said quickly. Right now, I'm sorry. You'll leave when I tell you to leave. First, you'll apologize to her. The man turned to Ebony, his face a mask of humiliation and fear. I apologize sincerely. Ebony nodded, not trusting her voice. Marone studied the man for a long moment. If I ever hear that you've spoken to anyone the way you spoke to her tonight in any establishment in this city, you'll discover exactly how extensive my influence is. Do you understand? Yes, sir. It won't happen again. Leave. The man practically ran from the restaurant. Silence blanketed the VIP section. Marone turned to her, and for the first time, she saw his expression soften slightly. You're injured. She glanced down at her arm. Dark bruises were already forming. It's fine. I should finish my shift. You need medical attention. It's just bruises, Mr. Marone. Really, I'm fine. She forced herself to meet his eyes. Thank you for intervening, but I know you can handle yourself. He said it with such certainty that it surprised her. I watched you maintain your composure, your professionalism, even while being assaulted. That takes strength. He paused. What's your name? Ebony Crawford. Sir. M. Crawford. Take the rest of the night off paid. And tomorrow I want you to come to my office at 2:00 p.m. Her stomach dropped. Sir, if this is about what happened, the meeting is to discuss your future here. I don't tolerate harassment of my staff, and I want to ensure you feel safe in my establishment. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. 2 p.m. Marco. We'll give you the address. Then he turned and walked away back to his corner booth. Marco grabbed her shoulder. Jesus, Ebony, do you have any idea how lucky you are? Marone never intervenes personally. Never. What does he want with me? She whispered. Marco shook his head. When Diego Marone asks you to come to his office, you show up exactly on time and you don't ask questions. As Ebony gathered her things and headed out into the cold Manhattan night, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just changed irrevocably. Ebony didn't sleep that night. She lay on her worn couch in her tiny studio apartment in the Bronx, replaying every moment. The way Diego Marone had appeared like a storm, made human. The single word he'd spoken. The way his eyes had softened when he'd looked at her bruises. I watched you maintain your composure. He had been watching her. The address Marco had given her was in Tribeca. She took 3 trains to get there, standing the whole way, rehearsing what she'd say. The building was sleek and modern, all glass and steel. The doorman's entire demeanor changed when she mentioned Mr. Marone's name. Not friendly exactly, but respectful, wary. 23rd floor. They're expecting you. The elevator opened onto a reception area that screamed understated luxury. A woman sat behind a massive desk, elegant in a way that made Ebony feel self-conscious. Ebony Crawford. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Marone is waiting for you. Through that door, down the hall, last office on the left. Ebony's hands trembled as she walked down the corridor. At the end of the hall, a door stood slightly ajar. She knocked, her heart hammering.
Come in.
Diego Marone sat behind a massive desk, but he wasn't looking at paperwork. He was looking at the door at her as if he'd been waiting specifically for this moment. He stood as she entered. Miss Crawford, thank you for coming. Please sit. She sat perching on the edge of the leather chair. Marone picked up a file from his desk. I did some research after last night. I hope you don't mind. I wanted to understand who you are. Ebony's stomach clenched. You've worked at Stellato for 3 years. Perfect attendance until 6 months ago. Multiple commendations from customers. No complaints. He looked up. You also work overnight shifts at Prestige Cleaning Services and weekend mornings at a coffee shop in Harlem. She felt exposed. I need the money. 3 jobs. That's not sustainable. It's what I have to do.
Why?
Something in his eyes, genuine curiosity, not judgment, made her tell the truth. My mother has multiple sclerosis. She can't work. I pay for her care facility, her medications, everything she needs. Marone nodded slowly. And your father died when I was 15. Heart attack.
I'm sorry.
The words sounded genuine. Why are you here, Miss Crawford? Because what happened last night was unacceptable and because I want to make you an offer. He leaned back. I need a personal assistant. Someone trustworthy, intelligent, capable of handling high-pressure situations with grace. Someone like you. Ebony blinked. You want to hire me? Sir, I'm a waitress. You have 3 years of experience managing difficult personalities, navigating complex social situations, and maintaining composure under pressure. He named a lookery that made her head spin, plus health insurance that will cover your mother's medications, standard business hours, no more night shifts. It was too good to be true. What's the catch? She asked bluntly. A small smile tugged at his mouth. The catch is that the job will be demanding. I keep unusual hours, deal with unusual people, and occasionally end up in unusual situations. You'd need to be discreet, adaptable, and willing to trust me even when you don't understand what's happening. What kind of unusual situations? The kind where you might meet people who operate outside traditional business structures. He said it carefully. I own multiple businesses, restaurants, clubs, real estate. Some of my associates are colorful. You're telling me you're connected to organized crime, she said flatly. His expression didn't change. I'm telling you that I operate in a world where power is currency and loyalty is everything. What you choose to believe beyond that is your decision. Ebony should have been terrified, but she thought about her mother, about the medical bills, about the bruises on her arm from a man who thought he could hurt her with impunity. She thought about how Diego Marone had protected her with a single word. If I say yes, what exactly would my job entail? Managing my schedule, screening calls and visitors, accompanying me to meetings when appropriate, handling correspondence, he paused, and occasionally providing an outside perspective when I need someone to tell me I'm being unreasonable. You want me to argue with you?
I want you to be honest with me.
Most people tell me what they think I want to hear. That's useless. I need someone who will tell me the truth. His gaze intensified. Last night you stood up to a man who was bullying you. Even though you had everything to lose, that takes courage. That's what I need. When had being reasonable ever gotten her anywhere? I'd need to give 2 weeks' notice. She heard herself say. Marone shook his head. You're done there as of yesterday. I'll compensate you for the notice period. You can start here tomorrow. She thought about her mother, about the overnight shifts that left her exhausted, about actually sleeping at night.
Tomorrow works, she said.
Marone stood and extended his hand. Welcome aboard, Miss Crawford. She took his hand, feeling the warmth of his skin, the strength in his grip. For just a moment, their eyes met, and she saw something flicker in his expression. Interest, curiosity, something that made her pulse quicken. Sophia at the front desk will handle your paperwork. Be here at 8 a.m. tomorrow. He pulled a card from his drawer. This is my personal number. If you have any questions or concerns, call me anytime. As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. Miss Crawford. She looked back. What happened last night should never have happened, but I'm glad it brought you here. Something tells me we're going to work very well together. Ebony left the building in a daze. As she walked to the subway, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Your first assignment starts now. There's a car waiting for you on the corner.
Get in, MD.
She looked up. Sure enough, a sleek black SUV idled at the curb. The back door opened. Diego Marone sat inside. Change of plans. I have a meeting across town in 20 minutes, and I want you there. Consider it your first day. Every instinct screamed at her not to get in that car, but she thought about what he'd said. Trust me, even when you don't understand. Ebony took a deep breath and climbed into the SUV. Where are we going? She asked. Marone glanced at her, something almost like approval in his eyes. To meet someone who will teach you exactly what kind of world you just entered. The SUV cut through Manhattan traffic with an ease that suggested money and influence. Ebony sat stiffly in the leather seat, hyper-aware of Diego Marone's presence beside her. He was typing something on his phone, giving her time to process. Nervous? He asked without looking up. Should I be now? He did look at her. Honest answer. Yes, but I don't think that will stop you. What makes you say that? Because you got in the car. Most people would have declined, gone home, maybe called tomorrow to withdraw, but you made a choice to trust me. That tells me you're braver than you think, or more desperate, she said quietly. Desperation and bravery often look the same. His expression softened. For what it's worth, I understand what it's like to do whatever it takes to protect family. My father died when I was 16, left me responsible for my mother, my younger sister, and debts I didn't know existed. I had to make hard choices very quickly. It was the first personal thing he'd shared, and it surprised her. The SUV slowed, pulling up to a warehouse in Brooklyn. Ebony felt her anxiety spike. Marone must have sensed her tension. The man we're meeting is named Luca D'Amato. He runs shipping operations for several of my businesses. He's old school, suspicious of outsiders, and doesn't believe women belong in business meetings. He turned to face her fully, which is why I'm bringing you. I don't understand. Luca needs to learn that the world is changing, and I need someone who can handle disrespect without losing their composure. Based on what I saw last night, that's you. His gaze held hers. But if you're uncomfortable, I can have the driver take you back. Ebony thought about it for 3 seconds. I'm in. Something flickered in his expression. Respect, maybe.
Stay close to me.
Don't speak unless spoken to directly. And if anything makes you genuinely uncomfortable, touch my left arm twice. I'll end the meeting immediately. They exited the SUV. 2 men in dark suits materialized, flanking them as they walked. Bodyguards. Inside, the warehouse was a contrast of old and new. A group of men stood near a conference table, and their conversation died the instant Marone entered. Don Marone, one of them said, stepping forward. Luca D'Amato, late 50s, powerfully built, with calculating eyes that immediately fixed on Ebony with suspicion. We weren't expecting a guest. This is Ms. Crawford, my new personal assistant. She'll be sitting in on all significant meetings going forward. Luca's expression darkened. Boss, with all respect, what we're discussing is sensitive, which is why Ms. Crawford needs to be familiar with operations. Marone's tone suggested this was not up for discussion. Shall we begin? The meeting covered shipping manifests, customs clearances, warehouse logistics. On the surface, it seemed legitimate, but Ebony noticed the careful language. Special shipments, priority handling, friends at the port. Nothing explicitly illegal, but the subtext was clear throughout. Luca kept glancing at her with barely concealed hostility. Finally, he couldn't contain himself. Boss, I got to say, I don't like this having an outsider hearing details. Miss Crawford is not an outsider.
She works for me.
Steel underneath the calm. Do you have a problem with my judgment cell? The older man's jaw tightened. He looked at Ebony with open contempt. No disrespect to the lady, but she's got no business being here. This is men's work. The room went silent. Every eye turned to Marone. Marone stood slowly, and the temperature seemed to drop. Ebony, would you please tell Luca what you do for me? She met Luca's eyes steadily. I manage Mr. Marone's schedule, handle his correspondence, and ensure his operations run smoothly, which means I need to understand every aspect of his businesses. See, the thing is, Lucas said condescendingly, these aren't the kind of businesses a nice girl from. Where are you from, sweetheart? The Bronx should be involved in the Bronx, Ebony said quietly. And I'm well aware of the complications and dangers. Last night, a man grabbed me hard enough to leave bruises because he didn't like being told to lower his voice. I maintained my composure, did my job, and didn't back down. Mr. Marone seems to think those qualities make me suited for this position. Perhaps you should trust his judgment. She heard one of the other men suppress a surprised laugh. Luca's face flushed red. Listen here. No, you listen. Marone's voice cut through like a blade. Miss Crawford has shown more courage and integrity in the 3 minutes you've known her than you've shown in the past 6 months of missed quotas and supply chain problems. She's here because I trust her. If that's a problem, you're welcome to find employment elsewhere. The threat hung in the air. Luca paled. No problem, boss. I apologize.
Good.
Now, let's discuss why your last 3 shipments were delayed. Miss Crawford, please take notes. The meeting continued for another 40 minutes. By the end, Ebony had pages of notes and a growing understanding of exactly how extensive Diego Marone's operations were. When they finally left, returning to the SUV, Marone said nothing until they were back in traffic. You handled that well, he said finally. I've dealt with worse than Luca D'Amato. I don't doubt it, but I also put you in a difficult position without adequate warning. I apologize. The apology surprised her. You said you needed someone who could handle disrespect. I can. Nevertheless, I should have prepared you better. He was quiet for a moment. My world isn't kind, Ebony. The people I deal with, they respect power and strength, but many have outdated ideas. You're going to face more situations like this. I can handle it. I know you can, but you shouldn't have to. They rode in silence. Then Ebony asked the question burning in her mind. What exactly is in those special shipments? Marone looked at her for a long moment. What do you think? I think you're moving things through customs that aren't entirely legal. I think you have people on your payroll who look the other way. And I think you're very good at maintaining plausible deniability. She met his eyes. Am I close? A slow smile spread across his face, the first real smile she'd seen. It transformed his features. You're very perceptive, Miss Crawford. And you're right. I should be honest with you.
He leaned back.
Some of what I do operates in gray areas. I'm not a drug dealer. I don't traffic people and I don't hurt innocents, but I do move goods that avoid certain taxes. I do have arrangements with officials who prefer cash to principals, and I do protect my interests forcefully when necessary. So, you're a criminal. She said it without judgment. I'm a businessman who operates in a world where the rules are written by people who never had to fight for survival, where following every law means losing to people who don't. He held her gaze. If that makes you uncomfortable, tell me now. I'll pay you for 2 weeks, give you excellent references, and we'll part ways with no hard feelings. Ebony thought about her mother, about the insurance that had accidentally lapsed when her father died, about a system that left people like her working 3 jobs. My father worked construction, 40 years union job, did everything by the book. When he died, we discovered his insurance had lapsed because his company had stopped paying premiums. My mother lost everything. She looked at Marone. So, when you talk about rules written by people who never had to fight for survival, I understand exactly what you mean. Then you'll stay. I'll stay on one condition, his eyebrow rose, which is you never lie to me. If I'm going to work in your world, I need to know the truth. I need to be able to trust you. Agreed. He extended his hand to honesty. She shook it, feeling the warmth of his skin. And this time, when their eyes met, neither of them looked away. The SUV pulled up in front of her building. She hadn't given the address, which meant he'd already known where she lived. That should have been creepy, but somehow it felt like being seen. 8 a.m. tomorrow, Marone said. And Ebony, thank you for trusting me today. Thank you for being honest. As she climbed out, she felt his eyes on her. When she turned back, he was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Intense, thoughtful, almost protective. Lock your door and call me if you need anything. Anything at all. The SUV pulled away, leaving her standing on her familiar street corner that suddenly felt like the edge of a new world. 3 weeks into her new job, Ebony had settled into a rhythm that still felt surreal. She started each morning at Marone's Tribeca office, accompanying him to restaurants where the best tables materialized instantly to nightclubs where everyone seemed to both fear and respect him. And slowly, she was beginning to understand the true scope of Diego Marone's empire. Import-export operations, nightclubs that laundered money, real estate investments, protection services. It was organized crime, yes, but organized with such precision, it functioned like any corporate empire. Through it all, Diego Marone remained exactly what he'd promised. Honest with her, protective of her, surprisingly easy to work with. He valued her input, listened when she flagged problems, never made her feel like just a decorative assistant, and if she'd started noticing other things, the way his eyes lingered on her sometimes, the careful way he never stood too close, the protective edge in his voice when other men spoke to her dismissively. Well, she was trying very hard not to think about that. Ebony, I need you to cancel my 3 o'clock, Marone said, appearing in her doorway. Something's come up. She checked his calendar. The 3 o'clock is with Councilman Harris. Then he can be unhappy. I need to handle a family matter. Family? In 3 weeks, Marone had never mentioned family beyond that one brief comment. Is everything okay? She asked, perhaps overstepping. He hesitated, then sighed. My sister Emma is arriving at JFK in 2 hours. She's been studying art in Florence for the past 4 years, and she's decided to come home unexpectedly, which usually means trouble. Do you want me to arrange a car service? No, I'm picking her up personally. And I want you to come with me. Ebony blinked. Sir, that seems personal. Call me Diego when we're not in business meetings. And yes, it's personal, which is exactly why I want you there. Emma can be difficult. She has opinions about my life choices, and having a buffer might keep us from arguing immediately. He gave her a dry smile. Plus, she'll be curious about you. The casual way he'd said, call me Diego, made something flutter in Ebony's chest. All right, I'll clear your schedule. 2 hours later, they stood in international arrivals at JFK. Marone had changed into dark jeans and a cashmere sweater that somehow made him look even more devastating. There, Marone said suddenly, his face softening in a way Ebony had never seen. A young woman emerged through customs, maybe 25, with long dark hair, wearing ripped jeans and a leather jacket, pulling a battered suitcase covered in travel stickers. Diego. She dropped her suitcase and threw herself at him. And for just a moment, the most dangerous man in New York looked like a normal older brother. Ciao, Piccolola, he murmured. Welcome home. Emma pulled back, studying him. You look tired. Are you sleeping? And who's this? Her gaze fixed on Ebony with undisguised curiosity. This is Ebony Crawford, my personal assistant. Ebony, my sister Emma. Personal assistant. Emma's eyes gleamed. Is that what we're calling it now? Emma, Marone warned. But Emma had already moved forward, extending her hand. Ignore my brother. He has no sense of humor. It's lovely to meet you, Ebony. Please tell me you're making his life difficult. Despite herself, Ebony laughed. I do my best. I like her already. Emma linked her arm through Ebony's as if they'd known each other for years. Come on, you can tell me all about working for the Dawn of Tribeca. As they walked toward the SUV, Emma kept up constant commentary about Florence, her art, the men she'd dated, how much she'd missed American coffee, where Diego Marone was controlled fire. His sister was a wildfire. So, Emma said once they were in the SUV, turning to Ebony, "How did you end up working for my brother?" Emma, Marone said warningly.
What?
"I'm just making conversation," she grinned. "He's very protective of you. That's interesting." Ebony found herself relaxing. "We met when I was waitressing at Stellatos. There was an incident with a difficult customer, and your brother intervened." "I intervened how?" He said one word, and the man nearly wet himself. Emma burst out laughing. "What was the word?" "Release." The man had grabbed my arm. The laughter died from Emma's face. She turned to look at her brother. Someone put their hands on her. "It's handled," Marone said quietly. "Handled how?"
Comprehensively.
Brother and sister locked eyes, having an entire conversation without words. Finally, Emma nodded. "Good. My brother has many flaws, but he doesn't tolerate people hurting those under his protection." She paused. "Which you are now, whether you've realized it or not." "Emma," Marone said sharply. "We're here." The SUV had pulled up in front of a beautiful brownstone in the West Village. Ebony had assumed Marone lived in a penthouse somewhere. The brownstone was unexpected, classic, understated, with flower boxes in the windows. As they climbed the steps, Marone's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression darkened. "I need to take this." "Emma, get settled." "Ebony, can you help her?" "I'll order dinner in an hour." He disappeared into his study, already speaking in rapid Italian. Emma watched him go, then sighed. Business, always business. She looked at Ebony. "Come on, I'll show you around." 3 hours later, they were halfway through their second bottle of wine when Ebony's phone buzzed. "Are you still at the house, MD?" "Yes, Emma is showing me photos of you at age 12.
How is she?
Tipsy and telling me stories."
How are you?
A long pause. "Dealing with complications. Might be late. Make yourself at home.
Be safe."
Another pause. "That's the first time anyone said that to me in a while."
Thank you.
Ebony stared at the message, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. "He's different with you," Emma said softly. "I can tell from your expression. He's texting you personally, checking in. He never does that. Maybe he's just being a good employer. My brother is a lot of things, but just anything is never one of them." Emma sat down her wine glass. "Can I tell you something? Our mother called me 3 weeks ago. She said Diego sounded tired, worn down, like he was carrying too much weight alone. She asked me to come home." Emma's eyes were serious. "And then I get here, and the first thing I see is my brother looking at a woman like she might be the solution to a problem he didn't know he had." Before Ebony could respond, she heard the front door open. Both women tensed, but then Marone's voice called out, "It's me." He appeared in the doorway, and Ebony's breath caught. His suit jacket was gone, his tie loosened, and there was a cut above his eyebrow, still bleeding slightly. He looked exhausted and dangerous, and somehow more real than she'd ever seen him. What happened? She was on her feet before she consciously decided to move. "You're hurt." "It's nothing. Just a disagreement that got physical." He touched the cut absently. "The other guy looks worse."
Sit down.
"I'll get the first aid kit." Emma was already moving toward the kitchen. Marone let Ebony guide him to the couch, his eyes never leaving her face.
I didn't mean to worry you.
"Well, you did." She was angry suddenly, frightened by how much she'd worried. "You said you were handling business, not getting into fights. Sometimes business requires handling problems directly." He caught her wrist gently as she started to pull away. "Hey, I'm okay. I promise." The touch of his skin against hers sent electricity through her system. They were close, closer than they'd ever been, and she could see every detail of his face. "Found it." Emma returned with the first aid kit. "Let's see the damage." But as Emma cleaned the cut, as Ebony sat beside them, pretending her hands weren't shaking, she knew something fundamental had shifted. She wasn't just Diego Marone's employee anymore. And from the way, he kept glancing at her, his expression unguarded for once. She thought maybe he felt it too. The incident at S's operation turned out to be the opening move in something larger. Over the next week, 3 more of Marone's businesses faced sudden inspections or raids. Someone was coming after his empire. Ebony found herself working longer hours, managing increasingly complex situations, watching Diego transform into something harder, more dangerous. He was still careful with her, still protective, but she could see the weight pressing down on him. "We have a problem," he said one morning. His office was filled with his top people. "The raids aren't random. Someone's been feeding information to the feds, which means we have a rat." The room went cold. "Who?" S demanded. "That's what we're going to find out." Marone's voice was ice.
His phone buzzed.
He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor changed.
Fear.
"Meeting's over."
Everyone out now.
The room cleared instantly. Ebony started to follow, but Marone caught her arm.
Not you.
He stopped. "It's my mother. She's in the hospital." "What happened?" "Heart attack." "Emma's with her now." His hands were shaking slightly. "I need to go, but I can't leave everything here unmanaged with a traitor somewhere." "I'm coming with you," she said firmly. "Whatever needs managing can wait. Your mother needs you." He looked at her for a long moment, and she saw something break in his expression. "Thank you," he whispered. Mount Sinai Hospital 30 minutes later. Emma sat in the waiting room. Mascara streaked down her face. "She's stable," Emma said. But Diego, it was bad. Marone pulled his sister into his arms, and Ebony looked away, giving them privacy. "Can I see her?" he asked quietly. "Room 412. She's been asking for you." Marone looked at Ebony. "Will you wait here with Emma?" "Of course." He disappeared down the corridor, and Emma collapsed into a chair, pulling Ebony down beside her. "He's going to blame himself. That's what he does. Takes responsibility for everything. Carries all the weight." Ebony thought about watching Diego manage an empire while someone worked to destroy it. "He has you, and he has me now. He doesn't have to carry everything alone." Emma looked at her. Really looked at her. "You're in love with him." Ebony opened her mouth to deny it, then stopped because she realized Emma was right. Somewhere between the first moment he defended her and now she'd fallen completely in love with Diego Marone. "I can't be," she whispered. "Why not?" "Because he's Diego Marone. Because he's my boss. Because you're scared," Emma finished gently. "Welcome to the club. Everyone who loves my brother is scared. But he's worth it." Before Ebony could respond, Diego reappeared. His eyes were red-rimmed. "She's sleeping now. The doctors say she'll need surgery, but they think she'll recover." He sat down heavily, and without thinking, Ebony reached over and took his hand. He gripped it like a lifeline. "She made me promise to stop working so hard, to find someone who makes me happy." She said, "Life's too short to spend it alone." Emma stood. "I'm going to get coffee. I'll be back in 15 minutes. Alone in the waiting room, Diego finally turned to look at Ebony. Really look at her. "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't been there today. You've become essential to me, Ebony. Not just as an assistant, as someone I trust, someone who makes the weight feel lighter." Her heart was hammering. "Diego, I know this is inappropriate. You work for me. There are 1,000 reasons why I shouldn't feel this way." His hand tightened on hers. "But I can't pretend anymore. I care about you more than I should." "I care about you, too," she whispered. His eyes closed briefly. "This is dangerous. My world is dangerous. There are people who want to hurt me, and anyone close to me becomes a target. Then we'll deal with it together." She squeezed his hand. "You don't get to protect me from yourself now." He laughed softly, painfully. "You're incredibly stubborn. I learned from the best." They sat there, hands intertwined, not quite crossing the line, but no longer pretending it wasn't there. The call came 3 hours later. Dominic, his voice urgent. "Boss, we found the rat. You need to get back here now." Diego's entire body tensed. He looked at Ebony, clearly torn.
"Go," she said.
"Your mother's stable. Handle this."
"Come with me."
She blinked. "Diego, I need you there." I need someone who reminds me who I am. Someone who keeps me human when I have to do things that aren't.
Please.
How could she say no? They returned to the warehouse. Dominic stood in the center, his expression grim. Next to him, held between two large men, was Henry, one of the younger guys from the office.
Henry.
Diego's voice was dangerously quiet. Tell me Dominic is wrong. Henry's face was strewn with tears. Boss, I didn't have a choice. They had proof. Old proof. They were going to send me to prison unless I cooperated.
How long?
6 months. They wanted to know everything about her, about your schedule, about Ebony specifically. Something changed in Diego's voice. They said she was your weakness, that if they could get to her, they could get to you. But you gave them something. It wasn't a question. Henry's silence was answer enough. Diego stood very still. Then he looked at Dominic. Make sure he understands the consequences of betrayal. It was a death sentence delivered calmly, and Ebony felt ice spread through her veins. Diego, she said quietly. He turned to her and she saw something like desperation in his eyes. He was waiting for her to condemn him, to be horrified to walk away. Can I speak with you privately? He led her to a small office. The moment the door closed, he spoke. I understand if you want to quit. If this is too much, stop. She stepped closer. I'm not quitting, but is there another way? Henry was being coerced. If I show mercy, I show weakness. If I show weakness, 10 more people will betray me. This is how this world works. Harsh, immediate consequences. It's the only thing that keeps everyone safe. Safe.
Henry's about to die.
And because of that, 20 other people who might have been tempted will think twice. It's brutal math, but it's the math that keeps my sister safe, my mother safe, you safe.
His jaw tightened.
I hate it. Every time I have to make a decision like this, I hate it. But this is who I am. This is what I do. Ebony stared at him. This man she loved, who was both protector and executioner. The contradiction should have repelled her. Instead, she understood. He put a target on my back, she said quietly. You are. Diego's voice was raw. You're the biggest weakness I've ever had. And if anything happened to you because I let sentiment override strategy, he stopped. I can't let him live, Ebony. She thought about her mother, about the dangerous world where mercy was mistaken for weakness. She thought about how violence could erupt, about how the real world was rarely as simple as right and wrong. I understand, she said finally. I don't like it, but I understand. Relief flooded his expression. You're not leaving. I'm not leaving. But, Diego, she stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat of his body. If I'm your weakness, then you're mine, too. Which means we protect each other. No more carrying everything alone.
Deal.
Ebony, you don't know what you're signing up for. Yes, I do. I'm signing up for you. All of you. She reached up and cupped his face. So, stop trying to push me away. He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. You're the bravest person I've ever met. Or the craziest. That, too. When he opened his eyes, they were filled with an intensity that stole her breath. I'm going to kiss you now. And once I do, there's no going back. Are you absolutely sure? In answer, she pulled his face down to hers. The kiss was everything. Gentle at first, almost reverent, his hands framing her face like she was something precious. Then deeper, more urgent. Weeks of denied attraction pouring into the connection. He kissed her like she was oxygen, and he'd been drowning. When they finally broke apart, he pressed his forehead to hers. Mine, he whispered. You're mine now. And you're mine, she replied. Which means no more dealing with traitors alone? He laughed softly. You're going to make my life very complicated.
Good.
You were getting boring. This time, when he kissed her, she could feel him smiling. Outside, Dominic was waiting. He took one look at them, at their joined hands, at the way Diego stood protectively close and nodded once. About time, boss. Handle, Henry, Diego said quietly. But make it quick. No suffering. As they left the warehouse, Diego tucked Ebony against his side. I need to go back to the hospital. Will you come? Always. In the SUV, He pulled her close and she rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart. I love you, Diego said suddenly quietly. I know it's too soon, but I need you to know. I love you, Ebony Crawford, and I will do everything in my power to keep you safe. She tilted her head up to look at him. I love you, too. Even though you're impossible and dangerous and have terrible taste in business associates, he laughed, genuine and warm. Henry was Dominic's hire, for the record. Then Dominic has terrible taste. They rode the rest of the way in comfortable silence. Two people who'd found each other in the strangest circumstances, who'd chosen each other despite 1,000 reasons not to. And as the city lights blurred past the windows, Ebony thought that maybe, just maybe, they'd make it work. The wedding was small, private, and completely perfect, just family and a handful of trusted friends in the garden behind their brownstone in the West Village. Emma cried through the entire ceremony. Diego's mother, recovered and healthier than she'd been in years, beamed from the front row. And Ebony, in a simple ivory dress, promised to love this impossible man for the rest of her life. I never thought I'd get here, Diego whispered during their first dance. I thought my life was about duty and power and control, and then you walked into it and everything changed. Well, someone had to remind you that there's more to life than empire building. She stood on her toes to kiss him lightly. You were becoming insufferable, was our present tense. You're still insufferable, but you're my insufferable crime, boss. He laughed, spinning her gently. Around them, their guests celebrated. Dominic dancing with Iris. Luca attempting to teach Emma some complicated Italian dance. Diego's mother holding court with the chef from Stilettos. The business had stabilized. Diego had streamlined operations, brought in new leadership, and with Ebony's encouragement, started investing in legitimate ventures. He was still powerful, still dangerous when needed, but he'd found balance, and Ebony had found her place. She no longer worked as his assistant. She transitioned into managing his charitable foundation, funding community programs, providing scholarships, supporting families in need. It was her way of balancing the scales. What are you thinking about? Diego asked. How unlikely all of this is. A waitress and a crime boss. The best love stories usually sound impossible. He kissed her forehead. Thank you for not running when you had the chance. Thank you for giving me a choice. As the night wore on, as guests gradually departed, Diego and Ebony stood together in their garden, his arms wrapped around her from behind. Ready for the next chapter, he murmured. She thought about the pregnancy test hidden upstairs, about the news she'd share with him tonight, about the family they were building. Always, she said, as long as we're writing it together. Always together, he agreed. And as the city lights twinkled beyond their garden walls, Ebony reflected on how a single moment of violence had led her here, to love, to family, to a future she'd never imagined. She'd been invisible for so long, but Diego Morone had seen her, had chosen her, had built a life with her, and that made all the danger, all the complications, all the impossibility completely worth it. Thank you all for following this story. If you enjoyed it, please write in the comments where you're watching from and share your thoughts about this story. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video as your support is important for me to continue creating content. Until next time.